So if you were to look at a list of the 12 apostles, you would find that some of them say that one of the 12 was Bartholomew, or you would hear, as we heard in the gospel tonight, that one of the 12 was Nathaniel. It's a little confusing along the way. And part of the reason is that I always find it interesting that Chinese people tend, when they speak English, to take an English name. So they might choose Dawn, even though in Chinese their name may translate lotus blossom. But they choose something that's more common in English. And that's not an unusual thing, because even in the time of the apostles, many of them had a Greek name, so that when they were talking to Greek-speaking people, that's what they went by. And then in their Hebrew families, they had a Hebrew name. And so, not unusual. The only time I ever heard my name growing up was when my parents were mad at me. Otherwise, my mom called me Joe Pete and my dad called me Crockett, Just, you know that same thing happens in your families. And so the reality is we know that probably Nathaniel and Bartholomew are the same person, but we don't know that even for sure. In fact, we know nothing about him other than he came from Cana in Galilee. And, the Canaanites had this view of the Nazarites as being somehow less. It's kind of like, Goodrich and Linden talking about each other. What good can come out of Linden, Just the way that kind of operates in the world. But what's amazing is that Nathaniel has this insight into Jesus right away. When Jesus says, I know you. And he doesn't mean that I've heard of you, but he knows him. Enough to say that there's no deceit in this guy, no duplicity, that this is a true son of Abraham and Sarah. This is one who carries the promise in his life. And Jesus was able to recognize that in him. And that sparks Nathaniel's response. That's all we know about him. We don't know where he ministered. We don't know where he proclaimed the gospel. We don't know where he died or when he died or how he died. We just know that all of the 12, except for John, suffered a martyr's death. John, they tried to kill him, but he was able to survive being boiled in oil and poison and other things. So, he died of natural causes. But the other 11 died somehow a martyr's death. But what matters is not how they died, but how they lived. They gave their life to proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, the promise of Christ. And that's the important thing, because that's what we're all called to do. And it doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter when. There are circumstances all through our day when we have that opportunity, the way we talk with others, the way we deal with others, to proclaim the kingdom. And sometimes people get intimidated by that, but I always go back to the words of Francis of Assisi, who said, preach the gospel always, and when necessary, use words. That our life, like the 12, is meant to be a reflection of God's great love. Let us pray for one another this evening, that all of us will be that reflection, not just to each other, but to everyone we encounter.